Hey there, welcome to another Path of Exile guide. With Ritual League and the echoes of the Atlas expansion just around the corner, you know it's time to decide on that perfect starter build. If you're a new player, this choice is really important as it usually makes the difference between enjoying the game or giving up in frustration. And if you're already somewhat experienced, then you likely understand that a good start can set the stage for success for the rest of the league. Before going through the builds themselves, I'll just say a few words about what actually is and makes a good league starter build. So, a league starter is a build whose purpose is to get you as fast as possible to the point where you can farm tier 7 or 8 maps. That is a sweet spot where you start generating a good amount of currency and get decent drops, which should allow you to buy or craft proper gear. A good starter should be able to transition from that point to become an endgame build by acquiring better and more expensive items. Ideally, this should be possible with minimal passive points respecking. Since starting a new league means you have absolutely nothing in your stash, a good starter build should be able to reach that Atlas mid-tier with self-found gear and cheap items. It shouldn't rely on expensive or hard to get unique items, but instead on those which are always in abundance or obtainable using divination cards, which can be easily farmed. And just to clarify, while all builds will have some endgame best in slot gear that is more expensive, at that point we're no longer talking about a starter build. Then a good starter should be able to run any type of content and most if not all map modes. While boss killing is outside the scope of a league starter, it should however do fairly well in a wide range of scenarios. Another key aspect for a league starter is that it shouldn't rely on mechanics, skills or items that are introduced in the upcoming league. Not only would that involve a lot of guesswork, but such elements are always prone to be changed in the first weeks of a new league. In addition to that, a good starter should be easy to play without complicated mechanics or combos and supported by a clear build guide. No matter how great a build is, if you're wasting hours to figure out how to play it or choose the wrong leveling path in the passive tree, your efficiency will drop significantly. Finally, all the builds that I'll showcase have been tested, fine-tuned or designed by myself. They worked great as starter builds for a number of leagues now and are proven to be reliable for new players and veterans alike. If anything is unclear or you have any questions about these builds, you can find me streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/Navandis, link to the schedule in the pinned comment and video description. I'm generally live 4 or 5 times a week and I'm always happy to help new players better understand this game. First up is the fresh out of the oven Lacerate Gladiator build, one of the tankiest and most resilient characters you'll ever play. With 0 mandatory uniques, grabbing any rare physical damage axe and a decent shield will be more than enough to get you through story mode and the first few Atlas tiers. More importantly however, you'll likely do that without dying and even most boss fights will be a joke. This is doubly important if you're a new player as it gives you enough breathing room to learn the various boss fights and builds mechanics. And this continues even after you've started clearing the Atlas. As long as you keep your gear relatively up to date, most enemies will barely scratch you. Considering that both the new Atlas mechanic and the league rituals are basically arena fights against swarms of monsters, it's probably a good idea to go with a tanky build that can survive these encounters. While single target damage is not its strongest suit, you'll find examples of some of the toughest fights in the game in the full video guide. If the build has enough damage to kill Awakener 8 Cirrus, then it clearly has enough to wipe out a gang of map bosses. Topping everything off, the build is incredibly easy to play and master. There are no weird mechanics or combos, gearing up is simple and the passive tree has a really smooth progression, constantly picking up significant nodes. If this sounds like what you're looking for, then check out the full guide by following the link in the pinned comment and video description. My second suggestion for a league starter is the absolute classic Arc Witch, one of the most beginner friendly builds out there. In fact, Arc builds have been pretty much synonym with the concept of a league starter, and this one is definitely not an exception. It's well established that Arc is one of the best clearing spells in the game, depending very little on gear or even the player's own skill. With a very intuitive playstyle and absolutely no complex mechanics, it's a beginner's best friend. Fast-paced and amazing at killing large packs of mobs, you'll cruise through the story mode and knock the first few Atlas tiers with ease. When leveling the Arc Witch, you can pick up any staff, scepter or wand that has some spell damage and cast speed and it will work just great. The reworked Elementalist Ascendancy is a welcome buff in 3.13 with an amazing quality of life improvement on the Liege of the Primordial passive. Golems are resummoned 4 seconds after being killed. Not only will this make the overall gameplay much more enjoyable as you no longer have to micromanage the golems, but it's also a net DPS increase. In practice, when running endgame content, your golems would sometimes die and you'd need to stop casting Arc to resummon them. In addition, you have a bit more flexibility when picking the rest of the Ascendancy passives. You can go the full DPS route, taking Shaper of Storms and Shaper of Winter, or the more defensive setup, Shaper of Storms plus Bastion of Elements. Don't forget, the full guide is linked in the pinned comment and video description. Third league starter option is the amazing Toxic Rain Ranger. Incredibly fast paced and with excellent clearing capabilities, this chaos damage build is a farming and leveling beast. Carpet the screen with toxic spore pods which deal chaos damage over time and drastically slow down all enemies. No special aiming or targeting is required as the skill has a generous area of effect. This works great when you're trying to focus on learning a new league's mechanic. 3.13 Pathfinder Ascendancy changes were a major buff to this build, increasing the total damage output by about 20% and 15 additional movement speed. On top of that, Master Alchemist passive has become the default choice now for the elemental ailment immunity. Most of the build's efficiency comes from gems and passives rather than gear, making it perfect for the first days of a new league. It doesn't really need any mandatory uniques, and even its best in slow gear is usually dirt cheap. Just grab any bow with decent attack speed and you're good to go. Focus your other gear on defense and you'll cruise through story mode and the first few Atlas tiers. And as any respectable farmer, it's able to run literally every map mode, and that is a huge advantage when you start going through the Atlas. You won't waste any time or currency rerolling maps and you'll get much more drops, greatly boosting your overall efficiency. All in all, in 3.13 the build will be in a much better place than ever before, so this is the perfect time to try it. You'll find the link to the full guide in the pinned comment and video description. Up next is the incredibly fun but often misunderstood Crackling Lance. This skill was introduced in Heist League and unfortunately a lot of players wrote it off after various people designed absolute shit builds around it, not understanding how the ability works. This build was actually my league starter in Heist and it was one of the strongest and most fun builds I played the entire league. And that was mostly due to the really smart design of the spell. Normally it shoots a giant lightning bolt that hits all the targets in a wide cone-shaped area. As you keep casting, the spell gains what's called intensity stacks and turns into a narrower laser beam that deals massively increased damage. This means the spell adapts to be either a great mass clearing area of effect ability or an insane single target cannon. I believe this will work great with the new arena type of encounters we'll get next league, Mavens, multiple boss fights and the ritual circles. While the Inquisitor Ascendancy has been slightly nerfed, Crackling Lance skill itself received a major buff, so we end up with more damage and utility in 3.13. As with most caster builds, it's a solid league starter as it doesn't actually rely too much on gear up to mid-tier maps. Most of your damage will come from gem levels and any decent wand or scepter will carry you through story mode. With a unique playstyle that greatly rewards proper positioning and a player's own skills, Crackling Lance is an amazing spell for anyone who wants a more involved gameplay. So if you wanna play a build that only gets stronger as you play better, check out the full guide by following the link in the pinned comment and video description. Next recommendation is the Cyclone Champion build using one of the smoothest and most beginner friendly skills in the game. Grab a two-handed sword with decent physical damage and spin your way through the entire game. If you've ever played Whirlwind Barb in any Diablo game, well, this is Path of Exile's equivalent. Incredible mobility, excellent clearing speed and really solid damage are all perks of this build. On top of that, it uses one of the very few skills in the game which can continuously apply damage while constantly moving. Killing enemies while moving around and evading dangerous stuff is a great defensive mechanism and it only gets stronger as you become better at positioning. The build is also not really gear dependent and doesn't need any specific unique items. On top of that, items boosting physical or melee damage are always in abundance, so you'll have plenty to choose from. This version of the build is also intentionally designed to be a very budget oriented one, making it ideal as a league starter. While the Ascendancy changes coming to 3.13 lowered the build's DPS by around 10-15%, it had plenty to spare, so realistically the changes are rather minor. Lastly, I wanted to add a bonus recommendation of an insanely strong build which dodged pretty much all the nerfs in 3.13, the Soul Rest Phantasm Necromancer. Now before you grab your pitchforks and torches, I know this build breaks a few of those golden rules of a league starter. It relies on a very specific unique item, the Soul Rest staff, and you'll need to level up with a slightly different minion build, the Skelemancer. However, hear me out. The Balance Manifesto, Necromancer Ascendancy changes, and patch notes made it clear that Spectres, Golems, and Necrocasters, such as Volatile Dead or Detonate Dead, have been completely butchered. Along the top tier minion builds, the only ones that were virtually untouched by these changes are Phantasm Necromancer and the Skelemancer. So if you wanna play a minion build in Ritual League, then these are likely your best bet. The Scalemancer remains a beast of a build that can smash all the content with ease on a really tight budget. It's one of the fastest leveling builds out there, gains a lot of power from dirt cheap and common uniques, and can transition to endgame with a really small investment. There's absolutely no reason not to play the Scalemancer for the rest of the league, as it is a fully fledged build on its own and not just the little brother for the Phantasms. But if you wanna go with a Soulrest Necromancer, then it's incredibly easy to transition to that after leveling as a Scalemancer. Most of the passives, gems, gear, even 3 out of the 4 Ascendancy passives are identical, and the Phantasm Necromancer is basically just more of everything, more DPS, more defense, more minions, sort of an Uber Necro. You can find the extensive build guides for both linked in the pinned comment and video description.
Learn anything new, Exile?
If you did, then you'll probably be happy to hear there are more videos coming up in the near future with more exciting builds to try. Make sure not to miss them by subscribing to the channel so you get notified when that happens. And while you're at it, why not like this video as well or drop a comment down below to let me know your thoughts. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.